G'day guys, and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, I'm going to be going over the results that I saw when I compared my Uneekor Eye Mini to the Foresight GC3. This was really interesting, and the results I've got are actually quite positive for the Uneekor in a way. Still seeing some discrepancies with ball speed and club speed, but not what I expected to see. I did do all this testing at my mate's place. I took my Uneekor Eye Mini over to his house, so it was a little bit different hitting in a different environment. However, we set the units up side by side and we compared these things in depth. Okay, so before I get into this testing, I just want to give a massive shout out and thank you to my friend Owen. He was the one that let me come over and use his GC3. I went in there and he basically said, there's the sim room, do what you want. And he helped me out with the testing. He helped me align these two units. We got them aligned the best we could. And I really am thankful to Owen for helping me out with this test and letting me use his simulator. I started off by doing my standard test where I did my pitching wedge, 7-iron, 4-iron and drivers. I've got the results for those. I'm going to go over those. And then we just played 18 holes. So I'll talk about that 18 holes and what I saw in the second part of the video. But first off, let's crack into the results that I saw from my testing. So I'll put all these results just up to the left-hand side, but first I'll talk about the actual test. So I did do 60-yard shots first off. I haven't got the results for those because it was part of a different session in GS Pro and exporting the data meant that I had to export a lot of other stuff. But the 60-yard shots were actually incredibly close. I was really impressed. Ball speeds from the Uneekor Eye Mini about 1 mile an hour slower than the Foresight GC3 with those 60-yard shots. But overall, I mean, within tolerances and pretty good. So first off, let's look at pitching wedges. So I'll put the data on screen now. So we've got the Uneekor Eye Mini data at the top and the Foresight GC3 data just at the bottom. So what I was focusing on with this test was ball speed and club speed, because those are the two things that I've been seeing major discrepancies with. I did see a massive left spin axis on one of the 60-yard shots from the Uneekor Eye Mini. I didn't see any other massive, ridiculous spin axes through this test. I wasn't really paying attention to that spin axis while I was playing GS Pro. I was just concerned on ball speeds and club speeds. So what we can see with the first pitching wedge shot, and it's a little bit weird because the Uneekor does the newest shot at the top, whereas the Foresight data, the newest shot is at the bottom. You got to flip them around. So the first shot of the Uneekor versus the first shot of the Foresight GC3. So on the Uneekor for ball speeds, on the first shot, I had 103.2. On the Foresight GC3, we had 103.97. That is well within tolerances. Anything within 1 mile of an hour, I'm going to say is within tolerances because the Foresight algorithm does give about 1 mile an hour quicker than the TrackMan algorithm. And I believe the Uneekor Eye Mini is calculated off the TrackMan. I think that's what they use for their testing, is the TrackMan. So the Foresight will read things slightly quicker in ball speed, just the way that they do it, than the TrackMan. And I really think now that the Uneekor Eye Mini and the Uneekor products are calibrated with a TrackMan. So 103.2, we had 103.97. The next shot, 103.3, we had 104.3. Or 104.23, so almost 1 mile, again, 1 mile an hour within tolerances. Fourth shot, we had 103.8 versus 105.17, so it's just over 1 mile an hour. And then the last shot, we had 103.41 versus 102.3. Pretty consistent theme. The Uneekor Eye Mini being roughly 1 mile an hour slower with those pitching wedges than the Foresight. How did that play out? What did that change? So looking at the carry distances, and they're going to be using different algorithms for carry distance. The Foresight here is using the GS Pro software. The GS Pro software is based off a GC Quad, so it's essentially going to be the same as what the Foresight would read. So for carry distances, we had 138 yards for the GC3. We had 134 yards for the Uneekor Eye Mini. So 4 yards in it, really, as a difference. For me personally, I've always said my carry distance with a pitching wedge is 136 yards. Again, we're only talking a couple of yards, but for me, I'm going to really dig into this. I'm going to be picky. I'm going to be really picky when I compare these things. That's what I do. And I'm just going to give you my honest opinion of all this stuff and what I see when I play outside versus what I see inside on these launch monitors. So for me, in terms of accuracy of carry numbers, there's a couple of yards in it. I mean, they're both very good. However, what you're going to see when I get into the other data is there is a very consistent theme. We'll get into that later. Okay, now let's talk about club speeds. So this is where I noticed a massive difference through the test. Club speeds, it was actually really interesting. I was always arguing the fact that club speeds were too quick, and I do think you get outliers, especially with driver, where club speeds are too quick with the Uneekor Eye Mini. And that basically throws off the entire smash factor number, because ball speed's potentially too slow, club speed's too quick, and now your efficiency number is basically useless. Let's look at club speeds. Club speeds with pitching wedge, we had an average of 87.5 with the Uneekor Eye Mini. Club speeds with the GC3, we had an average of 91.2. So that is quite a big difference. And just watch that, because that theme does continue through the test. The rest of the data there is pretty solid. Spin rates throughout this whole test, they both are really good at spin. Okay, let's go on to 7-irons now. So 7-irons for me, I always say carry distance 170 to 174. That's what my 7-iron does in the real world when I play outside. So ball speeds, again, I'll step through each one of these. If you don't want to hear each shot by shot, you can just fast forward the video, but I'm going to step through it slow time, because that's just what I do. I love digging into all these details. So first shot on the Uneekor Eye Mini, we had a ball speed of 120.8. The ball speed on the Foresight GC3, we had 122.53. There's a bit of a difference. And this theme continues. What I saw from the 60-yard shots is the shots tended to be within a mile an hour ball speed. When I went to pitching wedge, they went out a little bit to about a mile an hour difference. And then with 7-irons, that gap increased again slightly. So let's keep going. Second shot on the Uneekor Eye Mini, we had 117.9. Now bear in mind, some of these shots I didn't hit good, but I left every single shot in just because I'm data collecting. I'm not going to take out bad shots. I'm not going to only put good shots in there. I left every single shot in there. So 117.9. On the GC3, we had 118.68, a mile an hour difference. The third shot on the Eye Mini, 118, we had 119.25, again a mile an hour difference. Fourth shot, 116.2, 117.37, again a mile an hour difference. And then ball speeds on the final shot, which is the one I probably hit the best, was 120.6 on the Uneekor versus 121.6 essentially on the GC3. So ball speeds for 7-iron, they're actually all pretty close. And looking at averages, we had 118.7 on the Uneekor Eye Mini versus 119.8 on the GC3. So it's a mile an hour difference. And like I said, with the Foresight versus TrackMan, there is generally a mile an hour difference. So they're pretty close. And it's just outside of tolerances. If you're going to say a mile an hour is your tolerance, it's just outside a mile an hour tolerance. Looking at the carry distances, on the Foresight, we had 170, call it, 169.76. On the Uneekor Eye Mini, we had 165.8. And that's just on the, obviously the Uneekor software. But for me, that carry distance is slightly short. Like I said, my 7-iron is 170 to 174. Looking at the Foresight, it averaged 170 and my best shot went 174. It is what it is. That's the data. Looking at club speeds. Now, this again was where I saw a big difference. We had an average of 91.3 on the Uneekor, and we had an average of 94.9 on the Foresight GC3. The club speeds were the big thing that threw me off, because I expected those numbers to be really close. The ball speeds with the irons, I thought were going to be absolutely perfect, spot on between both units. The ball speeds with the irons, we're starting to see a trend. They're all roughly a mile an hour lower with the Uneekor than the Foresight GC3. So yeah, I was really thrown off by the club speeds, because that is quite a big difference. We're talking almost 4 miles an hour difference. Let's now move to 4-irons. And this is where I started to see a gap, again, slightly open with the Uneekor and the GC3 with the ball data. So ball speeds on the first shot with my Uneekor, with the 4-iron, we had 128.5 versus the Foresight GC3, which we had 130.45. So now we're seeing 2 miles an hour. With the shorter irons, 7-irons, we were seeing just slightly over a mile. Now we're seeing 2 miles an hour difference in ball speed from these two units. Second shot on the Uneekor, we had 130.2 versus 130.95. So those two were actually pretty close. Third shot, 134 on the Uneekor versus 136.25 on the Foresight. So we're back at that 2.25 miles an hour difference. The fourth shot, we had 129.6 versus 132.28. I mean, that's almost 2.5 miles an hour difference in that shot. On the fifth shot, the final shot, we had 134.2 ball speed on the Uneekor versus 135.64 on the GC3. So looking at the averages, we had a ball speed of 131.3 on the Uneekor versus 133.1 on the GC3. So we're just shy of 2 miles an hour difference with 4 irons. But overall, in terms of ball speeds, I really didn't expect to see a difference with the irons. I thought the irons were going to be spot on, but we're seeing about a 2 mile an hour difference there with the 4 iron. Club speeds, again, were the big one. Looking at the club speeds, the Uneekor Eye Mini was saying my club speed was 95.6, and that was pretty consistent through every shot. And the Foresight GC3 saying my club speed was 99, just shy of 100 there, miles an hour. So that's quite a big difference. If anything, I thought we were going to see the opposite. I thought we'd see the Uneekor read it slightly high. Okay, let's talk about driver now. This is what everybody wanted to know, and this is what I wanted to know, because I honestly thought there would be a massive difference between these two units with ball speed. I was actually pleasantly surprised. What I did see was club speed discrepancies. The Uneekor Eye Mini seemed to fluctuate. It seemed to give some low readings and then some really high readings, but they averaged out to be very similar to the Foresight. And that's why you shouldn't really look at averages. You've got to look at the individual shots, and that's why I'm stepping through these. So let's go over driver. Let's look at the first shot that we hit with the Uneekor. We had a ball speed of 157.7. The first shot that I hit with the Foresight, we had a ball speed of 159.2. So pretty close. I mean, it's 1.5 miles in it, which is pretty consistent with what we saw from the 4 irons. Looking at the second shot, we had 159.7 with the Uneekor, 160.9 with the Foresight, again 1 mile an hour. The theme continues through the whole test. It was about 1 mile to 2 miles slower with the Uneekor compared to the Foresight GC3, which is a lot better than the 4 miles an hour that I expected to see. And it really makes me think that the Uneekor used TrackMan to base their ball speeds off, but we are still seeing a slight discrepancy, and so I'm just going to report exactly what I saw. The highest ball speed I had with the Uneekor reported was 162.9, and that was the last shot. Probably the best shot I hit was the second to last shot, and then the last 3 really were good. I hit 3 good drives in this, and they were the last 3 shots. It was probably as I was warming up. So the last 3 shots, let's look at those and let's dig into that data. So the 6th shot there from the Uneekor, we had a ball speed of 161.6, a club speed of 113.6. Looking at the Foresight data, we had 162.2, so ball speeds are very similar. They're within 1 mile an hour. Club speeds, we had 113.96 on the Foresight. Again, that looks pretty good. Looking at the 7th shot there, so the 7th shot on the Uneekor, ball speed of 161.9, club speed of 114.5. Looking at the 7th shot on the Foresight, we had 163.22 for a ball speed and 111 essentially for a club speed. So that's a bit of a discrepancy for me. You've got 162 ball speed versus 163.2, so it's just outside that 1 mile an hour. And then the club speed's the biggest one. So I did see, like I said, with the Uneekor, club speeds, some were low, some were high, averaging out to 113. With the Foresight, it was bang on every time, very consistent around that 113 mile an hour mark. Looking at the final shot on the Uneekor, we had 162.9, so essentially 163 miles an hour ball speed. And looking at the Foresight, we had 162.9. I mean, that is solid data. Club speeds though, again, 116.3 from the Uneekor versus 111 from the Foresight, which for me, 116 is like, that is a quick swing. Maybe if I'm completely warmed up and doing a speed session, maybe. The data from the Foresight is a lot more realistic to how I swing it, especially on the 8th shot of the day. So looking at the averages, ball speed averages from the Uneekor, 160.5 versus 161.2. That's within tolerances. I mean, that's That's less than a mile of an hour. So I'm happy to say that those were really accurate and really good. Club speed averages do fall close, pretty much identical. However, the issue is with the Uneekor, we had fluctuating numbers. With the Foresight, we had consistent numbers. Okay, so that was the first part of the test that I did. I was really happy to see that data. I was really happy to see that it wasn't 4 miles an hour difference with driver. That really filled me with a bit of confidence in this unit. But what I will say is this, what I started to see through this test, and I'm going to talk about it now when I just played 18 holes on GS Pro and I left both units running side by side, what I noticed is that with the irons, it started off at about a mile an hour difference with the pitching wedge. With 4-iron, it increased to 2 miles an hour. When I hit 3 woods off the deck, I actually saw 3 to 4 miles an hour difference between the two units in terms of ball speed. So the gap definitely increased from the short irons through to 3 wood off the actual deck. When I put my 3 wood on a tee, the ball speeds were very close. Like I saw with driver, it was about a mile and a half slower than the Foresight GC3, but off the deck, I was definitely seeing 3 to 4 miles an hour difference. I'm going to put up some pictures now because while I was playing the 18 holes, I did just take random pictures of pretty much every drive and 3 woods, 6 irons, all of that. So I'll put some pictures up now of exactly what I saw. And I'm glad I left the Uneekor on for this part of the test because I did actually see quite a big difference between the two units on certain shots. Okay, so this is one of the first 6 irons I hit. So you can see the ball speed there of 125.5 versus 128 with the Foresight GC3. So 2.5 miles an hour difference there with a 6 iron. That is going to affect the carry distance. What you'll see with the carry distance of the Foresight, it's in meters. Owen, my mate, he's an Aussie. He uses meters. We forgive him for that. But what I saw was a difference here with ball speed. 2.5 miles is quite a lot for a 6 iron. You shouldn't really be seeing a big discrepancy that much in ball speed when comparing these launch monitors. Ball speed, for me, it's in miles an hour, which is a standard metric. So if you're using a photometric versus a radar base, there might be some subtle differences. We're talking a mile an hour, not much. Within a mile an hour, I think for me is a good tolerance. That being 2.5 miles an hour difference with a 6 iron, that's a lot. So that was the first 6 iron that I took a picture of, 2.5 miles an hour difference. And I didn't just take pictures of the bad shots or the ones that were, you know, had a discrepancy. I just took pictures. It was a very, very consistent and common theme on all of these shots. That's the one thing I will say about the Uneekor Eye Mini. It is extremely consistent. It is really consistent, but it's just consistently slower than the Foresight. Okay, this was the second one I took a picture of. We had a ball speed of 123.6 miles an hour on the Uneekor Eye Mini, 126 on the Foresight GC3, again, which is going to affect the carry yardage. So again, we're looking at about a 2.5 mile or just under 2.5 mile hour difference between the Uneekor and the Foresight. So those were the 6 irons. Like I said, I did not cherry pick these. This was an honest, just my assessment. I'd hit a shot and I'd look at the launch monitors and I'd take pictures. This was very, very consistent. The Uneekor is very consistent. The Foresight GC3 was very consistent with its ball speed numbers, but there were some differences, and that's what I'm trying to highlight. Okay, let's go to 3 woods off the deck, because this is where I saw the biggest difference between the two units. This was a 3 wood I hit off the deck. We had 147.9 ball speed from the Uneekor, so call it 148. We had 152 from the Foresight. That's 4 miles an hour difference. That's a lot. And that's definitely something that needs to be highlighted. And looking at the carry distances, people are going to say, well, the carry distances are very similar. That's fine. The issue with this is when you pair your Uneekor up to GS Pro and try and play in either the tournaments or just play in general, it has a different algorithm. And the carry distance is going to be based off the ball speed, the vertical launch angle, and essentially the spin. If you get something that's 4 miles an hour slower, it's going to severely affect the carry distance numbers in GS Pro. The Uneekor software is obviously using a different algorithm for carry distance, and it's pretty good. I mean, looking at the carry distances that I saw from the Uneekor algorithm, they make sense and they're all really good. The issue is when you start inducing these lower ball speeds into a third-party software like GS Pro, and they use essentially the Foresight algorithm, you're gonna see a massive drop-off in carry distance. 3 woods off the deck, wasn't really impressed with the ball speeds from the Uneekor. They were very different to what I saw from the Foresight. Okay, so this 3 wood, I actually hit off a tee, and I hit this thing good. I mean, this was a solid 3 wood. What you can see is we had a ball speed of 153.8, On the Uneekor, we had 156 on the Foresight. So again, we're seeing just over a 2 mile an hour difference. The other thing I'll notice with this is the actual spin axis on the Uneekor was 12.1 right. I'm telling you, I hit this thing flush. I mean, this was a solid 3-wood. And I even said to Owen when this was when we were playing our GS Pro round together, the scramble. I said, that is perfect. I flushed that. And looking at the spin axis on the Foresight, we had a 32 left spin. So it's pretty much dead straight. Perfect shot. The spin axis on the Uneekor was 12.1 right, which to me was just incorrect. It was just not correct. Looking at the launch angles, now, the Owen setup, I couldn't actually get the Uneekor perfectly level. And so it was slightly tilted where it would increase the launch angle. So I wouldn't pay too much attention to the launch angle number. All I was focused on was ball speeds, but the spin axis from the Uneekor on this shot was incorrect. Okay, finally, let's talk about drivers, what I saw through the test. When I was playing 18 holes on GS Pro, the ball speeds were actually pretty good with the driver. They were still lower every single shot on the Uneekor, however, they were pretty good. The first one I took a picture of, we had a ball speed of 159.1, we had a ball speed of 160 on the Foresight. Really good data. The next drive, we had a ball speed of 155.7, so almost 156. Ball speed of 157 on the Uneekor, so we're just over a mile an hour difference, so pretty good again. The next drive, we had a ball speed of 157.6 on the Uneekor versus 160. So, I mean, that you're starting to get into 2 miles an hour plus. I mean, that's almost 2.5 miles an hour difference. That again is going to affect the carry distance in GS Pro quite a lot. To me, there is still a bit of a difference with ball speeds that Uneekor just needs to slightly tighten up. The next drive I hit, I took a picture of this one because it was a little bit wrong, and I'll explain what I mean. We had a ball speed of 157.4 on the Uneekor, a ball speed of 159 on the Foresight. So again, you're talking about a 1.5 mile distance, which is just outside tolerances for me. The reason I picked this shot was because the club path, 5.8 left, was just wrong. I don't swing 5.8 left with driver unless I'm trying to hit a big cut. The club speeds themselves were wrong as well. So we had 117.1 on the Uneekor. The Foresight on this shot had 115, which made a lot more sense. And then what happens when you've got a high club speed, a low ball speed, look at the smash factor there on the Uneekor Eye Mini. 1.34. So again, seeing a consistent theme, club speeds, you get those fluctuating club speeds with the Uneekor, ball speeds, it is lower. It's sometimes 1 mile an hour difference, sometimes 2, but it is pretty consistent with the ball speeds. And looking at the final driver that I took a picture of, we had 157.3 as a ball speed on the Uneekor, 159 on the Foresight. Again, the consistent theme continues, about 1 mile to 2 miles an hour slower than the Foresight. But to be honest, it was a lot closer than I thought it would be. All right, guys, so that concludes the video. That is the Foresight GC3 versus the Uneekor Eye Mini. That was the testing I personally did. That was my experience comparing those two units. I do think Uneekor has a bit of work to do with their algorithms. Personally, I think they need to work on club speeds. I think those fluctuating club speeds and also the club paths, it's not great. But then I do also think they need to slightly tweak the ball speeds. I can't explain why, but when I was hitting 3-woods off the deck, they just weren't consistent. They were about 3 to 4 miles an hour slower than the Foresight. Hope you guys enjoyed that. If you did, let me know. If you've got any comments or questions, let me know down below and I will catch you guys in the next one. Cheers.